Even as signs emerge in Washington of a possible cooling in the trade tensions with Beijing, China warned that the world had entered a new phase of turbulence and transformation, with unilateralism on the rise.
The U.S. is playing a zero-sum game, which is essentially about subverting the existing international economic and trade order by means of tariffs, putting U.S. interests above the common good of the international community, and advancing hegemonic ambitions of the U.S. at the cost of the legitimate interest of all countries. The world once again finds itself at a crucial crossroads. Should we firmly advocate multilateralism, or should we allow unilateralism to spread unchecked? Should we promote democracy in international relations, or should we condone power politics? Should we abide by international law and the basic rules governing international relations? Or should we return to the law of the jungle where the strong prey on the weak? On these major issues concerning the fundamental interests of all countries and the future of mankind, the international community must make the right choice, make its unified voice heard, and take joint action.
Beijing's envoy argued that the imposition of high tariffs deprived poorer countries of development, severely impacting the achievement of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda.
Development is the universal right of all countries, not the exclusive privilege of a few. The fruits of development should increasingly and more equitably benefit every country and every individual. The rich countries getting richer while the poor countries remaining poor is not an option. For the global south, and in particular the least developed countries, the imposition of high tariffs is no different from depriving them of the right to development.
While this public policy analyst and economist sought to dismantle the U.S. narrative that reciprocal tariffs were about addressing large U.S. trade deficits with countries.
Tariff measures are utterly unjustified by the economic claims of the U.S. government. The tariffs are directed towards a trade deficit that is not the fault of China's partners, but is the result of America's large budget deficits and low private saving. And so the United States is blaming other countries for its own economic policies. And this is extremely important. There is no excuse for these unilateral tariffs. Not remotely are they related to unfair practices of the rest of the world somehow cheating the United States. Now, the claim of the U.S. government was never examined by Congress. It was never debated in the public. It was made as a matter of an emergency decree that also, in my view, not only violates multilateralism, but also the U.S. Constitution, where Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution absolutely gives the power of tariffs to the U.S. Congress, not to the President of the United States.
China is dangerous.
The U.S. representative hit back at China, accusing it of weaponizing its donor status and development projects to bully member states.
Today's meeting is a performative maneuver. The premise is devoid of any substance or credibility. The world should look at China's actions rather than its empty claims when judging its contributions to the international system. For far too long, China has deployed unilateral unfair trade practices that hurt not only the United States, but market economies and workers around the world. China continues to use state subsidies and other non-market practices to build overcapacity and flood the world with exports, displacing local economies. Beijing has also taken a variety of non-tariff actions aimed at hurting farmers and manufacturers all over the world via dual-use export prohibitions, applied sanctions, and antitrust and anti-dumping investigations. Beijing continues to manipulate international financial institutions' resources, borrowing only to relend, burnish its reputation, and line its pockets with lucrative development contracts. President Trump is resetting the trade environment so that China can no longer take advantage.
Some council members pointed to other actions of unilateralism and bullying that have undermined the UN Charter, including instances where the sovereignty and territorial integrity of states are violated, including by permanent members of the Security Council. Also, some concern raised that this council was not the right forum for a debate focused on trade, rather the purview of the World Trade Organization or the UN Conference on Trade and Development. But China's concept note for this meeting argues that US tariffs are having an adverse effect on progress towards the SDGs and the urgent need to uphold multilateralism and defend the basic norms of international relations. And while views were ventilated here, any resolution to differences on trade will likely come in a bilateral format, far from the halls of these United Nations. Shervin Ricepies, SABC News, New York.